Hello and welcome again to the Temporary Temples Crop Circle Conference 2024. I'm Karen Alexander, your host, and this is week three. And this is our second presentation of this week, presenter of this week. So it's my pleasure to introduce Marien Grace to you. Marien has been a long-time crop circle researcher and runs the Bay Area Crop Circle Group. So that bringing people together to discuss crop circles, which is always a good thing, and what we are trying to do with this conference. So Marianne, I'm going to hand the meeting over to you. I'm going to pin your picture. And then if I can invite you to share your screen, and then I can get the sizes of the screen sorted out for you.
I don't want to share it just yet.
Okay, that's fine.
I will share it a little bit further in. So I'll just get started, shall I?
Yep, I'm here in the background.
Okay, thank you. Um, all right, well, hello everybody. I was originally, when I was challenged to put together this talk, I was originally thinking that it would be a travelogue because I spent 2 weeks, 2 amazing weeks in England, kind of bucket list trip. And now I've got a bigger bucket that I want to do 3 months in Britain, if I can. But I was able to do 2 weeks there this past summer and had an amazing time at the end of June and beginning of July. And I really went there with the idea of it being a pilgrimage, a crop circle pilgrimage, that I would be, even if there weren't crop circles that appeared while I was there, and there were very few, it was a scant year. But there was one that appeared while I was there, and there was one that had appeared before I got there. Uh, but even if nothing had appeared, the pilgrimage of actually going and visiting all these places that I've heard about for so many years and getting a feel for what are they in relationship to the land, what is important about that landscape. And it was incredibly powerful to be on that landscape and feeling the how deep and powerful all of Britain is. Britain is the green man. It's amazing. It was so alive. It was an amazing time of year to be there. Everything was green. Things were blooming. It felt like spring, even though we were into summer. And and I was able to travel around and do these, go to these various spots and feel how that where these crop circles get placed and where the sacred sites are placed on the landscape, they're strategic. And they're strategic for ancient times and it seems like for bringing us back in to feeling ourselves in orientation with the land, coming back into some kind of harmonic relationship with the planet, may it be. That where these crop circles happen and where the stone circles and the henges and everything else is where there is energy that is flowing through the landscape in some way or another. And they amplify or contain or pinpoint those surges of energy. And so that was really powerful. And I mean, that's a fun talk to give. I've done it here at my home, and it took 3.5 hours because there was just every day something magic happened and just really amazing. It was a beautiful trip. However, what I really would rather talk about, and is my real concern, uh, with living, is the real concern is really trying to understand, well, what are we doing here? Why is there a why? And I do think there is a why to incarnation. Is there a why to this particular realm of 3D that is so challenging, difficult to get through these days, and also can be really beautiful and easy. So, what are we doing here and what can we learn? Are we evolving? Is this some kind of alchemical crucible that we're in that's allowing us to process something for us to um, become better selves in some way, even better spirits in some way? Is that possible? And is the crop circle phenomenon a kind of curriculum or some kind of supporting structure that we are being given as clues for us to help develop? So, one of the first things that comes up, so if we consider this possibility, then we have to look at, okay, well, what comes up in us in response to having this be presented to us? And, one of the very first things that I think we have to acknowledge, I think everybody has this at least go through them in some fashion, is that um, there seems to be some level of consciousness that is other than us, that is incredibly intelligent and powerful. It has access to action and interaction and power in a way that we don't understand and is seemingly benevolent, seems to be quite benevolent. So it seems to be beyond our comprehension. And I don't identify as that, but at the same time, I don't feel that I'm separate from that. I don't, because I do feel like there is a oneness of the universe and that this is all at some grand scale of God consciousness, big oneness, incredible depth of intelligence. I'm part of that. I can't not be part of that. It would be impossible to be separate from that, really. So, but at the same time, I don't identify as that. Just like at the same time as I know that we're all one, this is a singular reality. I don't identify as you. I identify as a separate self, and that's part of the conditioning of taking on an incarnation. So So even though I don't identify as them, I do feel that I am part of it. And as a beginning here, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen now, if I can get that share happening. Here we go. So to witness first my what became part of my journey, my pilgrimage through the summer. This crop circle came down before I got to England, and it ended up. I realized later it ended up being a bit of a parable for me for what my journey was as I went through England, how it happened. This kind of described it in a certain way, and predictively described it because it happened before I got there. And I'm also seeing it as kind of an expression, a lovely poetic expression of the hero's journey in a certain way. So let me just describe it for you, show you my language. This is just how it's going through me. This is very personal how it affected me. I'm not separate from this phenomenon, and so this is how it has affected me. So, you see what usually is a 5 spot, the circumpunct with the satellites around it on the ring. And we'll say it's the fourth satellite is not quite on the ring, it's off the ring. And it's going through, if we think of this as all the same dot going through some kind of dance, that as it interacts with the surface of the planet, how big it is, how deep it is, or how far above the planet, it expresses differently. It expands and expands, and the third dot seems to be the one that should be on the ring. And but then it keeps going, goes deeper in and out again. And so there's this oscillating dance that's going on, it seems to me. Now, the way that I read this after I had been through my journey in England was that it was kind of a description of what happened for me over and over again while I was there, where I had an aim to get somewhere valuable, like to see a particular crop circle or to um, visit a certain sacred site. And I was very bravely driving for the first time in England, which was a learning curve in itself. And and on my way from Heathrow to Avebury, where I was going to be staying, on the motorway, there was a sign that said Wilton. It might have even said Wilton Windmill. I'm not sure. Um, but I thought, oh, Wilton, that's where this crop circle is. Why don't I go and visit it? And I thought, what a great way to start my trip. So I got off the motorway and started driving, and the sat nav, the GPS systems in the car wasn't being very helpful to me, and I didn't really know where I was going, and I was driving on this very narrow street for the first time, and didn't know how far away it was going to be. And at a certain point, I realized, you know what, I better turn back and just go to Avebury, and hopefully I'll be able to get back there. And when I got to Avebury, to the bed and breakfast that I was staying at, there was one other couple staying there, and they helped me get in. And then the next day I went into Avebury, and they were there, and they saw me and recognized me, and which was great because I didn't remember them really. Um, but they came over and said hello. And then a little later in the day, I went to the Crop Circle Exhibition Center in Alton Barnes, and they happened to show up there too. And so there was a synchronicity, a beautiful serendipity that was happening. And then I suggested that we go out to visit the Wilton Windmill Crop Circle the next day. And they knew how to drive, they were English, and they drove me there, which was really great. And it took a while to find where the crop circle was in the field. And it was work. The whole thing was work. And so I'm realizing that I have this aim to be in harmony and in right relationship with the whole, with on the ring, but there's this other journey that is happening that is it was the once I finally got to the crop circle, I saw that it was on a hill, and that this particular tail was actually kind of going downhill and looking out into the landscape and seeing. This was where I first really started to feel how the landscape is so important to the well, to our journey. It's, where we are, how we're referenced into the land is it's informative. And you could see the hills around outside this valley, and that, of course, a windmill has to be up on top of a hill in order to catch the winds. And then I just actually realized this later, how the winds are changing, and that this crop circle was underneath a windmill that can blow in all kinds of different directions, and you can wilt. I mean, the crop was actually kind of wilted by the time I got there. It wasn't in terribly good shape. It didn't have this beautiful geometry symmetry that I see here on this picture. By the time it had wilted on, let's say. So this became kind of a an analogy of what happened for me over and over again while I was in England, where I was trying to get somewhere couldn't quite find it, didn't really know where I was going, but my heart was really into it. And then someone would show up or circumstances would arrange themselves where the right person came along and was able to direct me. And I would find these magical, it all felt very, very magical. So that was amazing. I am going to, if I can figure out how to do this, because my cursor doesn't show up. Whoops, no, that wasn't it. Stop share. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit more and then I'll go back to the sharing in a minute. So my real concern, is really in trying to understand these lessons in incarnation. So, you know, there's that parable of this crop circle, the hero's journey, and the lessons that seem to come from it for me are things that anything of value, anything that I value that I'm trying to strive for, it's it's worth it to keep trying. Perseverance is a good thing and it may require work. A lot of these things, a lot in my travel log, these places aren't on the map and you have to really work at it to find them and go over hills. You can't just drive up to them and get out and they're there. So it was work. And the second thing is that there's always second chances, that this universe is not final. There's going to be a second chance. Even if we die, I think we can come back and try again. So there's mercy that's available in this. And then also the goal may not look like your original aim. That crop circle didn't have all the dots on the ring. There was this other journey that went on. So we're kind of fumbling towards ecstasy, as in my favorite album by Sarah McLachlan, which I was listening to recently. So, I mean, that's really interesting. It's that kind of story that seems to be able to be read into the crop circles. It's kind of staggeringly precise and intimate. And it portends a level of love and consideration that, for the duration of this talk, I am going to allow that this force that is creating this crop circle phenomenon is an other with a capital O, capital THER. It's truly, truly other. And it may, we can all. That's a great subject for us to debate or talk about or give our different impressions with. But for the duration of this, I'm going to allow that is actually an other. So then the question is, what's our proper relationship to them, to this other? And right relationship is something that I am also really, really concerned with trying to understand. And what is it that can be used to give us pointers for what is right relationship? How do we understand how that works? Is there a universal morality that would apply not just to us, but to them and to our relationship between them? And I think that in order for that to be found, we really need to develop maturity, a deep level of maturity. So what enables that? So what in intelligent cultures, as the individual is born and grows, the individual comes to a point that for humans, it's called puberty, where power starts to arise within you organically, within the physiology, within your consciousness, at certain levels of power start to rise. And in intelligent cultures, the pubescent individual or the adolescent has to go through an initiation in order to be welcomed into the adult community as a worthy and contributing member. And initiation rites have been going on for millennia, for very, very long time. But it seems like our current modern culture has kind of lost the thread there. We've forgotten about that. And it very well may be that we are being given a species-wide planetary initiation right now. So I want to talk a little bit about what the function of the initiation is and how that works. Um, so an initiatory rite is going to be a challenge for sure. And if the individual doesn't get the opportunity to have the initiation, what happens, it gets distorted. That power that's rising gets reverted back into oneself and only goes into acts of self-service. And for the feminine principle, that act of self-service gets enacted as acts of seduction. It's like, how can I get you to pay more attention to me? It's a pulling of your energy and a need. And so it gets expressed as acts of seduction that don't really have service much for the greater good. It can be put into the greater good, but in the uninitiated, it doesn't. It just continues to become toxic. And for the masculine principle, it gets manifest as acts of um, grand displays of power. And I first realized this actually in a medicine journey many years ago that I was in, where I don't know if you've had this experience where, you agree to take this medicine and it starts to come on and it's like really, really strong and you think, oh no, what did I get myself into? And anyway, what was happening for me in this journey was that the medicine was rising and it was really intense. And what I was seeing was the image that was coming up was monster trucks, that just love going over the anything that they can and like digging through the soil and destroying whatever it can. There's just this massive display of power. And then as the medicine started to calm down a little bit, there started to be this, not exactly a parade, but all of these geometric beings, I'll call them beings, started appearing. And they were beautiful spheres and geometries, and they would appear and then grow protrusions and grow amazing little pieces on them. And then each of the little protrusions would get adorned and decorated and colored and they were just clearly in this great joy of just being beautiful. And then much later in the journey, as the medicine was calming down much more, I saw an indigenous brave kind of on a ridge top looking out into the landscape. And it was later, after all of this was over, that I was reflecting on this, that I realized that this was all about the what happens with the uninitiated and the need for initiation. So I think it's really important, that the feminine doesn't just do makeup and jewelry and clothing, and that the masculine doesn't just make bigger and bigger toys to play with, but that it all be put into service. So with the initiatory experience, with the initiatic rite, um, the individuals are given an opportunity to find that the power that's rising in them can be used communally and be put into service. And it's a challenge, they're put through a real challenge. And you can actually, in the really serious initiatory rites, you can perish if you don't somehow find a way to be appropriately aligned with the greater good, with or with divine force to be supporting you, to somehow truly be um, not stealing codependently, from energy from the outside, but really being self-sourcing and having that the power that is also individually being expressed be put into service. Yeah. So it's a creative force and it has the potential to be a gift, for the greater reality. So, and successful passage of that initiation results in being welcomed into the adult world and given responsibilities that prior to that you probably didn't have. So, and you shouldn't have had because you didn't understand how it could be used well. So, the initiation rite gives you an experience of how that can be put into right relationship. So, is our species going through an initiation? I think so. Is their species going through an initiation, in relationship with us, whatever that is? It's all definitely a challenge. And this is a communal process that we're in. And what's the maturity that we need? What's the level of responsibility that we may be given or need to assume, both in order to pass the initiation and then to be in right relationship? So, the opposite of self-surface is relationship. And it's hard enough for us to do it as human to human. I mean, that's really to be in right relationship. It's difficult. Just imagine how hard this may be as human to this level of other. I think that incarnation on earth is the initiation path. Incarnation is, and it's challenging and it's requiring deep levels of self-examination and openness to our sensitivity, to be able to get the messages and the information. You have to really open your sensitivity, and that requires a lot of courage to be honest and receptive. We also need to be discriminating because things can be mirrored and flipped, and there can be not so good intentions and not so great relationship that can be active. So, how do we develop strength of presence and right attitude, with humility and willingness and wellingness. I like this. I like thinking of it as welling. We are welling. And I want that this relationship with other to actually reflect that. I feel like it's partly our responsibility to aim our perception so that those levels of wellingness can be revealed and brought to bear. So, okay, it's a practice in the dojo. So the dojo is, I think this whole reality is, the dojo is a great analogy for what this whole reality is. It's the dojo is the sacred room or hall in which martial arts are practiced, and hopefully safely and with great care. And I want to emphasize the word arts, that we're looking for the rules of engagement that are artful and not martial, really. We want this to be a dance, not a battle. We want to understand how this interaction, this relationship can really just be ecstatic and, revealing and like surprising in ways that we hadn't, that real innovative, there's a word I'm looking for, uh, I'll let it go. That kind of interaction can really be fun and surprising. So we want an engagement that nurtures beauty and revelation and alignment and joy and creativity and depth of realization. And so in incarnation, in this initiatic path that we're in incarnation, it's a game. It's a, they talk about this being a simulation, which I think is not inappropriate. But again, we are not separate from the creators of the simulation. We are deeply interacting with it and being able to understand how that works, especially how that works well, is the maturing process and part of the alchemy of our initiation here. Wellness aims towards healthy relationship. So, can we learn the rules that we can take some responsibility for in playing this game? Because with responsibility comes power. And power, what is power? Power is the movement of energy at different levels of amplitude through the matrix, through the simulation. And it's more or less distorted by how we are handling and shaping our internal self matrix in response to how we relate. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen again, if I can find it. Oh no, did it disappear? Um, where'd it go? Uh,
Should be along the bottom of your screen,
one
Marien.
would think. I needed um, yeah, I see where to share. Hold on. I think my program may have quit. Let me turn it back on again. Keynote. Here we go. Okay. Can you see it right now?
I can indeed.
Okay, great. So let's go down to the next slide. Great. Perfect. Okay. So I think I am grateful for this curriculum that we're being given because there are laws of geometry, there are laws of dynamic geometry that to me describe something about this right relationship of the dance. And for me, this kind of describes this cosmic morality that I am trying to aim myself into and encourage in my relationships. So, and especially my relationship with other that may be possible, maybe on the horizon. So there's the horizon, and how do we navigate into it? Yeah, well, there's this this idea of the ship's wheel, the ship's realm. It looks very nautical, this particular emblem. And of course, it has what we can immediately think of as the Freemasonic symbols, the Masonic symbols of the compass and the square. And those are the square is the most highly held geometry, basically, in Masonic relating. And what does it mean to be square? Why is the square so important? What is it about that right angle that allows for right relationship? It's not just about how to build something well, that'll stand up. It's also about our relationship with each other. Are you square with each other? Are you on the level, So why? What is it about? So one side of the square, if you allow that it's standing vertically and horizontally, the square angle is your own vertical and then your horizontal relationship with the outer. That in vertical is it's your relationship through scale. It's your ability to feel yourself in relationship to the planet, actually, and in that level of finding what is balance, what is vertical. Vertical is reliable. Vertical even if you're lying down, if you're perpendicular to it, you understand where vertical is. And vertical is it's supported through fractal scaling. So, you with the planet may as well be you one to infinity. And that level of being able to rely on that gravitic force is, oh my God, such a gift. I kind of can't imagine being not on a planet and not being able to have that. We talk about being able to go traveling in space, and It's a little scary to me, to think that maybe we wouldn't have that kind of level of support. But of course, we're also through scale, then there's the cosmic scale. The Earth is supported in the solar system, which has its own center of gravity, and the sun, and then, keep going. And all of those levels of scale are actually centered through your own vertical. So that is all completely supporting you through your own self center of gravity. And it's not reliant. You're not codependent. You're not dependent on others. You're not like stealing energy. You don't need to steal energy from anything else in order to have that level of verticality. But at the same time, it's kind of unstable. The square can, it can tip, unless it has cross bracing, which is interesting. You need to be able to see the cross bracing allows you to see polarities, it allows you to see how it can flip. Um, And that's important in order to have your own stability. And being able also to oscillate and dance around that vertical, because we know that, we're given two legs to be able to dance and oscillate with that vertical and not fall over, which is really great. And the horizontal, that 90 degree, that's the ability to be clear and straight with someone with the least amount of distortion. So, different kinds of influences will curve and bend that that angle, that 90 degree, and distort and filter your perceptions. So part of the practice is to become aware and have a deeper facility with those distorting influences, whatever they are, positive or negative, to help you see more or to help you focus more on something. So, and those influences are both internal and external, um, especially from something that I'm calling the static realm. So, here's some geometry that I find very helpful. So, I have this cosmology that says that our beings are in incarnation, that we are within two intersecting grand spheres of reality that you could call the past and the future. You could also call it, David Bohm called it the implicate and the explicate. Or the explicate, I guess, would be the past. The implicate would be the future. That's full of unknowns. And then there's the intersection between the two, where it creates this vesica that actually in 3D is a disc. It's actually, if you put it this way, it's shaped like a flying saucer, isn't that great? And it's our interdimensional ship. So, and note that the past it can be flipped, like Peter was talking about actually wonderfully, is that it can be both positive or negative. The past can be informing and has created it's created your familial history, your societal history, the collective history, then where you were born, all of that has patterned you into becoming who you are. And at the same time, a lot of that in its negative connotation is is overly stuck and stabilizing. It becomes institutionalized into formats that say this is how things are and there is no other way, and it becomes stuck. And in its negative form, I call that the static realm. In its positive form, I could possibly call it the story realm. The story realm. Maybe it's all story, I don't know. But the static in the story. And that there are all these ST words that seem to express staticness and that are appropriate. So, and then the other realm, the future or the implicate, is utterly unknown. It's there's some knowns in it. There are some ways that we can project a little bit into how we think it's going to be, or that we can look at the patterns of the stars, we can see potentials and propensities and maybe project a little bit about what the future is going to be and prepare somewhat for it. But to actually be open to that it's truly an unknown is going to be the more growth, have more growth potential, basically. And so we want to be able to get past any trauma-based controls that are from the static, and somehow be in this interaction, this vesica, this fly, our interdimensional ship in between, that now I'm calling that's the ecstatic. It's our interaction with the utter and the static that becomes the ecstatic realm. And the way that we stay vertical, that you can see there in this in these two lovely crop circles, there's a verticality that helps you orient, is these two other intersecting circles that I think of as your hands on the steering wheel. This is how you can orient so that you can actually face in the direction that you want to. And to me, the analogy that works if this is an initiatory symbol, is that those two things are space and time. And how we relate, what is right relationship in space and time, so that we can have this be a positive and growth-filled and maturing reality, rather than one that collapses us and sticks us, and where we reincarnate again and again and again, trying to get it right. So we're in the super implicate ecstatic realm. So I have another way to think of what the utter is. It's UTTER, but it's also, in this positive sense, it's UDDER. The utter is something that can be nourishing, and the unknown can be welcoming you in the greater reality of the unknown. The larger implicate order can be inviting us to meet it in new and creative ways, ecstatic ways that are maturing and amazing. So we need to be informed by both. So taking into account that they also may be being informed by this same kind of relationship into this initiatory process, that hopefully they are actually connected more into the wholeness, and that we are being somehow fed and being given this opportunity to be informed by space and time, with their relationship with space and time, and how to do that well, so that we can really have this gorgeous geometry be encouraged, but the dance really unfold in a beautiful way. So space and time, I want to talk a little bit more about how I understand space and time, because I think this is instructive. It's helpful for me to have more personal emotional investment into how do I be in right relationship to space and time. And the two words that I give to that, space is about respect. That's definitely about right relationship. And um, time is about nurturing, and that's also about right relationship in space and time. It's like and those two things, this how we are in space and time in regards to respect and nurturing, can also be positive and negative. Negative respect is disrespect, basically. I mean, that's kind of obvious. And negative nurturing is becomes toxic action. And instead of something that's encouraging growth, it's promoting or developing collapse and towards death, the death wish. So, what is respect? Respect honors that everyone has a right to be here, that the universe is big enough. There is enough space for everyone to be here and actually to do it well if we want to. And to that everyone has the right to be here and do have their own unique expression, be utterly coordinated into the whole. That's real respect. It also, respect doesn't stick you to any particular expression. It knows that you can you continue to develop and flourish and find new expression. And the nurturing will encourage that. The nurturing is willing to have there be a revelation and evolving intelligence. And it encourages both safety and freedom for the full blossoming. And I'm going to talk about more about safety and freedom in a moment. It also allows the nurturing and respect also allows that there is time. Not only is there enough space for everything to be, there's enough time for everything to unfold at its best pace, at its most ecstatic rate, and for its continual and full blossoming. It's very merciful. That's the aim that I want to be. That's how I want to be aiming my lens into the unknown. And taking some responsibility for how that happens is important. And I think that developing this cosmic morality encourages that. So we do want both freedom and safety. The freedom can be static and safety can be static, and understanding how that works. So, the swallows, this is a swallows in four directions flying out. The swallows are a symbol of both freedom and safety. They were a tattoo that was given to prisoners when they were released from jail, having somehow gone through the initiation of the alchemical container of being contained with their dangerous whatever it was, wherever they were jailed, presuming that it was appropriate, that they've now developed enough to become free and safe at the same time. And the swallows were and it's a nautical thing too, that they were seen out at sea, and the sailors out at sea in the great unknown knew that land was not far away and that they were safe, that it was going to be safe. So it's a symbol of both safety and freedom. And we have somehow programmed it in to our current society that it's a choice between one or the other. You have to give up freedoms in order to be safe, and you have to give up safety if you want to be free. And there is static safety. There's safety in the static realm that is stifling of creativity. Too much safety, giving up too many freedoms for safety is really stifling of creativity. And it also, that need for that kind of safety makes you create armoring and shutting down of your sensitivity. It's like, and that can be functional. There can be something functional about that, because that shielding allows you to limit disturbance and lets you really be able to investigate deeper. That's something that the prisoner in the cell can go through the alchemical process. But safety that's nourished by udder, UDDER, acknowledges that it needs something for its safety. And it also acknowledges what it has learned already, while holding open that more can be learned, and that there's much, much more to be learned in connection with source, that as long as you have your vertical in connection with source, you're okay. And that de-armoring leads to freedom, which requires you to develop your sensitivity, your courage to be sensitive, to be able to unfold and let others unfold safely. Unhealthy freedom, the static freedom, it's untethered from source. It's untethered from that center, and it's kind of wafting about chaotically and without regard for source and its impact and your impact. But if you can feel your alignment back into gravity, and you can be safe to explore, kind of like, how the toddler, or, us as adolescents, maybe we can venture out, the toddler ventures out from mom safely because it knows it can return at any moment and that it can rest and relax and rejuvenate, come back into your childlike innocence, and which is healthful, rejuvenate, when you come back to source and to the utter, the mom. So we need both freedom and safety. And the swallows are symbols for that. And being able to go out in all four directions, all directions, may it be, safely in utter harmonic coherence, may it be. So, finally, we have the Lion's Gate crop circle, where in the Lion's Gate, where you must be in your emotional courage and strength and, um, whatever, everything that the lion represents, and here the hands are all in a circle. The community is the thumb is looking inward, referencing source, and the fingers are touching out beyond the realm. We're trying to be in relationship to something larger and in communion with something. And at Etchell-Hampton, which, Jonathan Paul loves to call E.T. Chill-Hampton, so out beyond, how do we have relationship with other appropriately? And here's like a next level step where you really need to pay attention to your inner world and see it much more deeply and how that works, and pay attention to how your impact on the outer is echoing and reflecting out and going through. Listen for the resonance and be sensitive with that reflection and your response. So may we pass our initiations. I'm going to try to stop share here, but I can't see my cursor. Let's see. Hello. Oh, I was close there. Down just a little. There we go. And tap. Did that work? There we go.
There we go.
Okay. So may we pass our initiations, and may our contact be benevolent, beautiful, and brilliant as may be actually possible. So I think that's it. How's my timing? Oh, perfect. Right on.
Thank you, Marien. Thank you very, very much.
That seemed to work.
Bring everybody back to the screen here. So thank you very much. Virtual round of applause for Marien. Thank you. So let's dive into some comments and questions. Peter, you have something you'd like to say.
Marien, you always manage to bring some new angle in. I totally love just listening to you. This initiation process is about a leap of faith in the unknown, also, like what you said, and that was I was thinking about, and I think crop circles are very much about that, and some crop circles quite in particular. So there was one thing I was thinking about, that this initiation is one thing, but it's also signifying a new existence afterwards, that by the very concept of initiation, we cannot know about what that is. It requires us to have a leap of faith into it, and we just need to make the jump. And our current culture is so desperately holding to what is familiar, and if we just let it go, it would be over in a decade or so. In a positive way. I love the idea that the other also may be on a path of initiation on a higher level to guide us. I really thought that was an interesting thought that I never thought of. Thank you very much.
Mhm.
There is this sense of verticality that you talk about, and we as a human being are not just bones stacked upon each other. We have also soft tissue that need to be balanced in order to keep us up. Um, and in an anatomy book that I have, there was a poem that I thought was really appropriate. It's not long; it's just a few lines. Could I please read that out loud because it's so appropriate to this kind of being in balance?
Please.
The silken tent is it called? It's called. She is as in a field of silken tent at midday when the sunny summer breeze has dried the dew and all its ropes relent, so that in guise it gently sways at ease, and its supporting central cedar pole that is its pinnacle to heavenward and signifies the sureness of the soul seems to owe naught to any single chord, but strictly held by none is loosely bound by countless silken ties of love and thought to everything on earth the compass round, and only by one's going slightly taut in the capriciousness of the summer air is of the slightest bondage made aware. I do like to thank you, thank you very much, Marian. It was I really enjoyed this.
Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah, like it's like how Wilton Windmill, is its own poetry. And and how many levels of detail can be sussed out of that. They're so beautiful. The level of intelligence that's involved in this, down to, my own personal being able to stand up, it's like
How
I
beautiful,
just
how beautiful it is to become aware of this and to become part of a conversation where we can acknowledge this and recognize this. And yes, beautiful. Thank you. Cheers.
exquisite. Thank you.
Joanna.
Hi, yeah, that was a good presentation. That was really enjoyable. Thank you. I was interested in hearing your thoughts, and it's great that you got over. It was this year, right?
Mhm.
Okay, yeah. And you mentioned you went to Wilton, and I know that area has had a lot of very interesting crop circles over the decades, especially I think they had the one with the Euler's identity crop circle there. And in 2016, I saw one that was shaped as a heart there. It wasn't very big. And I've always been drawn to the heart-shaped crop circles. Was fortunate to be in the one in 2004 in the chakra one. And it kind of rang a bell with me because the heart, of course, the idea of love. And I wasn't able to hear, I'm going to hopefully hear the replay of Veronica's talk, but there was something mentioned about how love is at the center of what, you know, we're doing, we're thinking and everything. And I'm interested too that you're thinking about like what does this all mean? Why are we here, purpose and all that. I I'm trying to connect it all with the crop circles. And yeah, it's a journey. Um, but I think there's something there with the heart, with love. It's interesting. I've been watching some podcasts on people who've had NEDs, near death experiences, and they all come back. Well, a lot of them come back with that message. We're here to learn how to love and that. So yeah, thanks again.
They're my gurus. I I love the NDE people. I watch hundreds of them.
Really interesting stuff.
Yeah, yeah. And considering that they, whoever they are, other, um, is on this journey with us, it's really makes you question, makes you go deep with what is this? How is this? Well, how is this working? I just, how does that, how can I in right relationship not being subservient, not giving my power away to them, and also not expecting them to come and, save me or save us or whatever. What is really right relationship to all of this? These are big questions. I mean, not just with us, with them, but even with each other, these same questions. It's how do we do, this is a huge initiatory container crucible, this planet Earth society.
Yeah.
And it's only a tiny fraction of the greater whole. So
Yeah. One thing that struck me when I was listening to one of these NEDs, someone was talking about seeing orbs, like the balls of light, which of course around crop circles all the time. And I can't remember if it was she or he got the or was told or something that they're souls, people. And I've heard that before, that they might be us, um, humanity, from the past, the future, whatever.
ancestors, whatever, or even us. Yeah.
Mhm.
Fascinating idea. Yeah. Thank you.
Jonathan.
Wonderful, Marien. Wonderful, wonderful. I liked several phrases you used. I like the moving wellness to welling. In other words, taking it from an object and putting it into a process. The same with consciousness. I think it's not consciousness, it's consciousing. In other words, can we be singing our awareness, so to speak? That was that I'm going to use that in terms of putting, again, that moves it from object to process. One thing and I think you're right on with this sense of initiation. Let me suggest that perhaps you put initiation with incubation. I don't know if you're familiar with the work of Peter Kingsley or not. I think you might want to really dive into Peter Kingsley, the wisdom, the dark places of wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
He goes into pre-Socratic. I mean, it's a sense of connecting with the otherness deeply. So I think you'll find his work really quite engaging, because what he says, we have to die before we die. In other words, part of this transition, part of initiation, and that is part of initiation, the rites of passage, is your old self has to die before you move into the new self. And of course, that's, I think, the challenge for our group. All of us here are doing it in our own individual way, but how can we use this, what we're doing here in terms of community, Karen, as a form of social initiation, social incubation? I think that's part of the larger process. And so the question I had was, how can disclosure be an initiatory process on a social, on a collective basis? I don't know, that might be, there might be some, how can we let the old die and go away and then let the new emerge? So that was, and then there's a whole lot more to say about space and time, as well as space in time. No, I was really, I mean, there's a whole lot. I'm a bit ecstatic about your presentation, so thank you. But there's one correction that might be significant. If you can't, you don't need to pull up, but the Mason tools, that you had that located wrong on your schedule. You said it was at Woodborough Hill and near Alton Priors. Actually, this is what's going to be amazing, is that formation is exactly where the last formation of this season came down, in the very same field. So if you look at, the one that you pointed, that was actually at Etchelhampton, or at E.T. Chilhampton. Correct me if I think I'm, Karen, those are right in that very same
yes,
field.
Yeah, that's correct. Yes,
Yeah. So look again at that. I just noticed that when you pulled that up, and I saw the labeling was that you had said Woodborough Hill.
Yeah,
yeah.
I don't know why I have it labeled wrong. I must have gotten that from somewhere, but anyway.
Yeah, but what is striking is exactly what you're talking about. It's all happening in the same field there at Etchelhampton. But I really liked your mirroring too of all of that. I think there's a whole lot more here, but again, ecstatic. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you. I will look up Peter Kingsley. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good book. Yeah. Gary, jump in.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah,
Uh,
great. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Congratulations, Mariam. Great talk.
Thank you.
A couple of things that just came to mind. So I was just jotting down notes as I was going through. So I just want to reflect on a few things if I can. First of all, sort of a bit of a laugh, really. Having acted as a tour guide for many years and obviously facilitated taking some Americans around the crop circles, it was lovely to hear you say that going around the crop circles and finding them is hard and it's challenging. I've taken some Americans on. I remember one lady whose name I won't mention because it would be rude to do so, but we got to a crop circle and I said, we have to get out of the car now and walk into this field, and she said, "You have to walk." I think she thought they were going to be like Disney carts that were taking people out into the field, so you could still watch them as you went by. Or I didn't know what to imagine, but it just made me laugh. So it was lovely.
Have such a sense of privilege, and in our national parks, we just drive right up, and there it is,
Having visited America, I knew that, so it was funny to me when it happened. I just thought, wow, it's so interesting, isn't it? The way that we approach these things. So that was funny. I'd written down here. It's like I've made a note, and now I can't remember why I made that one. So I'll come back to that. The issue about the four directions that you made and going out into the four directions, and you mentioned, excuse me, you mentioned martial arts in your presentation. So I want to give you a martial arts principle from what you just said, and it's actually a video I rewatched today about a particular style called Xing Yi, which is the 5 elements style of Kung Fu, okay? There are 3 main internal styles, Xing Yi, Bagua, Tai Chi. There are lots of other derivations, but they're the sort of main 3 that people talk about. Xing Yi is based on 5 animals, 5 elements. And, in a lot of the martial arts, obviously everything's based around the Dantian, which is our physical center, but then it's later on an energetic center. And it comes about being an energetic center based on us sending our attention there. So at first you don't feel anything and you send your attention there and eventually you start to feel stuff in your Dantian. So it becomes a real tangible center once we put our mind to it, kind of thing. And then that Dantian acts as a bridge. I'll go off on a tangent here, but it acts as a bridge between East and West, this Dantian then, because it's this notion of that what our going into the imaginal realm, the other realm can do from our center. But in order to issue force, physical force, lots of people think that, you throw your body weight forward like a boxer would in force equals mass times acceleration. Whereas with the way that the internal arts work, when you issue force, say from your hand, you don't issue it just from your hand. It comes from the center, from a compression and an expansion in all 4 directions. It just happens that one of those hands will make contact, but the force is actually going out through your feet and out through your hands in all directions, and your whole body is this compression and expansion. And that then leads to an informing of other activities, of thinking about those principles, about sending our consciousness in expanding with everything else. So the physical, the analogy, that's why I think the internal arts and what the Chinese did with the internal arts, making it a physical action, not so much about fighting, more about these deeper principles, that when you get into them, is that they mirror these principles that we're trying to point to, but we can't describe, because language is just never going to be sufficient enough to give us that descriptive language to point to us, like we were talking about earlier with Dante, but with a physical feeling and a sensation of how it works and how it practically works, you can test it. You get that deeper analogy. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's really beautiful. It's I've often thought that power, the power that we really want to be generating is being sourced through our vertical and, coming in from both directions, and being able to be, I don't know, it's somehow worked in here, and that it just spills, or it gets directed through your aim, through your attention. But the only thing we really need to do is open and understand how to aim, and then everything kind of flows correctly.
That's
I think. And then, but the other thing is like how to make that really be in the service of dance and art rather than conquering and
well,
you know,
as and it's a very valid point, because it's like you said, the contradiction in a way is that the journey of going to a crop circle is that it's hard and there's a battle involved. It's not a dance.
struggle. It's a
Sometimes
challenge.
it's a struggle. It's frustrating, just like a battle, right?
Mhm.
And it's a battle that we can handle. We're given what we can handle usually, rather than getting to, metaphorically getting into the ring with Mike Tyson, who, you know, we just never have no chance. So we get these challenges that are kind of commensurate with our abilities to fight that battle and to go through that struggle. So there is an issue of a balance between a battle and a dance and how you play with it. But a lot of these issues about the battle, obviously, when the martial arts becomes this inverted thing, going into the fourth dimension, as Peter was saying earlier, is that a lot of these things just are metaphorical, really, with that you're having the battle with yourself, with your own morals and ethics, and how you will have right relationships. To bring that back to what you were saying about how you have a right relationship, like for example to the square, right? In Freemasonry, they say, "What is the square?" And the answer is an angle of 90 degrees, or the fourth part of a circle.
Oh,
And
nice.
so there's this relationship, okay, to this infinite again through the square, which is square in the circle, but we can never quite. So there's lots of references to them, and they all kind of come together when you start to make them.
Mhm.
But yeah, so you made me think of those things, which I thought was great. And the last thing was these little touches. You said all the details, yeah. And again, that brings me back to love, because I went to a Buddha Field festival many years ago, my first ever Buddha Field festival, and I think I've mentioned this before, but this particular festival, all the Buddhists, they go there and they meditate for 2 weeks before the camp starts, and they build the camp, they build the toilets, the communal toilets, they build the communal tents and stuff that functions and meditations and yoga classes are going to be, taking part in and so on. And when the public arrive, these guys have been meditating, they've been working together as a cooperative with a common aim of facilitating something that's going to be beautiful and an experience, not just on a physical level, but on a spiritual level for the people who come. And so I remember going to one of these communal bathrooms once, right? And they're just utilitarian things, right? They're just what they are, okay? But somebody had taken a branch from a tree, and they'd carved a beautiful lot of flowers, just whittled them into this branch, okay, and then attached some string to it, and that was the loo roll holder. And you couldn't hardly see the carvings unless you touched the loo roll holder. And when you push the loo roll holder to the side, you go, "Oh, look, someone's carved." Now that comes from love. It has to, doesn't it? Someone who just wanted to facilitate an invisible act to convey love to the guests and the people who came to the camp. I see the crop circles and what you said in the same way with these details.
Indeed. One of the I have an art degree, and the main thing that I learned, the most important piece that I learned in art school was that how to tell a good piece of art is that every detail points to the intention of the artist. And I feel like that's what we can do with these things. It's that you can look at any detail and it will tell you something about the intention of the artist. And who is the artist? Well, that's another question, but
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, but their intentions feel good, benevolent, strong, powerful.
They do
Yeah,
indeed.
yeah.
Thank you, Marion.
Thanks,
Thank
Gary.
you.
Thanks. Um, Somebody once asked me,
Sure.
I have not been a good tour guide. I haven't done a lot of tour guiding over the years. I've done a few. But somebody once asked me, what do you take with you? What would you advise that in preparation of this amazing experience we're going to have. To which my response was a good pair of shoes. And because
I ruined
yeah,
2 pairs while I was there.
but it to me the struggle of getting there sometimes is about the worth of it. It's when you've had a struggle to get there and you finally get there, and and then you think, yeah, it's all been worth it. Yeah. And I mean, just as a general thing, Marianne, I really appreciated your discussion today, because you were addressing directly the thing that is at the heart of the mystery of this, and that is its origin, and it's something we don't do enough of. And I mean, I'm pleased that there's been some of that going on at the conference this year, because so much of the time the focus is on the circles themselves, or other things that happen in or in and around them. But the central thing at the end of the day is that you're talking about an other, and it's not very often that it's directly addressed. We tend to look at the works rather than, so I want to thank you for that. And this comes up in the in the disclosure conversation a lot. Very often when you listen to people talk about that, they're talking about the UFO or the UAP thing, that they're talking about what disclosure might mean. What would that mean for it to be out in the open, that there was some other kind of beings other than ourselves, and the conversation is so rarely about the relationship that would need to be built and our approach to that. Rather, it's about how wonderful all this technology is going to be and how it's going to solve all our problems. That's the bit that is the focus, rather than the fact that what it might be like for us to meet an other intelligent race or species, and about what that would entail for us personally and culturally. It's never really talked about on that, the idea, that what would it mean for us that we were not alone anymore? What would it be like to share stories with somebody else and to hear stories from them? These things are very, very rarely addressed head on. It's always, it feels to me anyway, that a lot of the time the discussion is in the abstract, and it isn't about the intelligence itself, but about what the intelligence has, which actually, when you hold a mirror up, tells us more about us than it does about them. So I really appreciated you doing that today. I think it's such a much needed angle to the conversation, as did Peter today. So thank you both.
Thank you. I think the question of, if I were to be put into a room with like planet Earth, for instance, with a stranger who is really, really different, how do I be so that this be a relationship that can actually go somewhere, and be beautiful and not set up some kind of adversarial, like, must protect, or I have to really be self-examining. What are my projections? What am I holding? What do I think can I be vertical? Can I be square in this? Really, can we be parallel, instead of any kind of, can we dance with that parallelity?
Yeah.
Yeah. Sean, I wanna
yeah,
hear
Sean, yeah.
Oh, thank you. First of all, thank you so much, Marianne, for really addressing so many things that need addressing. and big topics. I just want to put in an unabashed plug for tomorrow. I'm talking, and I'm dealing with this from a different perspective that maybe hasn't been approached, which is I'm a full trans channel and have been for 40 years. And I'm going to talk about that and that relating to other, the unseen other that happens with the full trans channel and what all is entailed. So I want to invite everybody, but thank you so much for bringing it up, because we're just grasping this is a relationship. And now we get to the fine fun of, okay, how do you develop that relationship? And so I want to address that tomorrow. And thank you so much for the setup.
I do like how
It's
the
terrific.
conference seems to have an arc that is weaving together.
Yes.
Love it.
It happens every year. It doesn't matter what year it is, that the conference always sort of seems to find its particular focus. Yeah. Jonathan.
Yeah, again, the sense of the and others, or the others, the otherness, I think that is really, really key in terms of being in relationship, because as we are in relationship with ourselves. Can you speak more about that in terms of, we're seeing ourselves develop? There's a process. We've been able to see there's actually a process in the forms over the last 30 years. How would you speculate or imagine the development of the others, which there are multiple? Somebody say there are 72 species, or 57 varieties of, I don't know how many others there are, but what might be the process too that they are evolving so that we can communicate? And what is just yesterday I was in a conversation, and I said this before, I think you got it. No, you heard of that actually someone is saying, well, these crop circles, they're just non-human intelligent selfies. They're selfies that are coming from the others. So, and then how do we read the selfies or their bands, what? Yeah. So, but can you speak more, or can we, I think we're really on to how can we facilitate a civil communication with the cosmic others? Mm-hmm.
That is all about this idea of, is there a cosmic morality that we can actually applies to us, that we can actually follow? And that's where this idea of, realizing that we're both that we are influenced by static realms, and that we're also completely wanting to be in relationship to the other, to the nourishing udder rather than the untethered udder, that
the absolute other.
Yeah, right. Absolute udder, as opposed to the milk of the udder. So, for me, what I feel like is most reliable is to be cultivating this, anchoring this, my hands on the steering wheel, that realize that I'm in space and time, and for me to have a relationship with another in space and time, I need to feel safe, and I also need to feel free, and I want to take some responsibility. That's the maturing process, for holding that particular portal open, so that the response can be, or what gets revealed to me is through that lens, that it's respectful and it's going to be nurturing. And I need that. That's what I want. It certainly seems like our culture really, really needs to learn this. And if we can at least stand with that, we can maintain some vertical while we're being impressed with the utter,
Mm-hmm.
and
you have
hopefully maintain, have some facility with how do we maneuver with this so that we can keep our own vertical, and but still be open.
You're really touching on one of your neighbors there over at Berkeley, an old philosopher named Josiah Royce. he had a whole philosophy based upon what is your relationship to the absolute. It might be of help to look at that, because he establishes that. He's an early 20th century, late 19th century philosopher at Berkeley.
Okay.
And anyway, but yeah, Josiah Royce, and what is your relationship with the absolute? So no, this is good stuff. Thank you very much.
Peter?
Okay.
Well,
Well,
I'm sorry. Can I?
that's okay.
That it's not, this relationship with the other is not only about being safe but it's also about having fun. And I have to think
Yes.
of falling in love with somebody, and having this response, and then this time of exploring each other and finding out of how this works, and not knowing anything, and just the fun of it. That's also a drive, this eros drive that we need to cultivate with each other. I think. Yeah. Beautiful.
Thanks, Peter.
End on that.
Thomas, I think, Thomas, you've just got a final question.
Yes, thank you. I didn't know about that. I just wanted to thank you both speakers because it's like I feel like I didn't expect those speeches in any way. And because there was so few, only few crop circles this year, I feel like these are like your speech were like two crop circles appearing, today, not in the field, but in consciousness. That's why I wanted to thank you both. And also to say to Marien that everybody can get lost, when looking for crop circles. For instance, this year, the crop circle that happened next to Crop Circle Visitor Center, when I went with my brother, I was 100% sure from the pictures that this is next to the ribbon crop circle that was mentioned, I think, the last weekend. And then Karen and I think Professor Paul was mentioning that this was the same place. But actually, when we got there, my brother said, "Where are you going? This is different place." And actually, this year crop circle near visitor center was not in the ribbons area, was like maybe 300 feet away.
Yeah.
Thank you, Marien, and everybody, and Peter. Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas. Thank you.
Journey.
Okay, well, I'm going to sadly bring our session to a close for today.